Don't translate, just speak. But how? One of the most common pieces of advice English learners hear is this: don't translate, just speak English. It sounds simple, powerful, and motivating, but for most learners, it creates frustration instead of confidence. You try to follow the advice, but the moment someone asks you a question in English, your mind automatically goes back to your native language. You first understand the sentence in your own language, then search for the English words, arrange them into a sentence, check the grammar, and finally speak. By the time you are ready, the conversation has already moved on. You begin to wonder, why can't I think directly in English? Am I just not talented enough? The answer is no. Your brain is not failing you. It is simply doing what it has been trained to do for years. Your brain has spent most of your life understanding the world through your first language. Every memory, every emotion, every experience, and every conversation has strengthened that language pathway. So, expecting your brain to suddenly ignore it and think entirely in English is like asking someone who has always driven on one side of the road to instantly switch to the other. It feels uncomfortable because your brain is creating new pathways, and creating new pathways always takes time. The real goal is not to stop translating. Here is a truth that surprises many learners. Translation itself is not the enemy. In fact, almost every fluent bilingual person translated in the beginning. Translation is a natural stage of language learning. The mistake is trying to eliminate translation too early. Instead of forcing your brain to stop translating, your goal should be to give it so much meaningful English input and practice that it naturally begins to skip the translation step on its own. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you consciously think about balancing, steering, pedaling, and braking. Every movement requires effort. But after enough practice, you don't think about those actions anymore. Your body simply rides the bicycle. Speaking English works in exactly the same way. Fluency isn't something you force, it is something your brain develops through repetition. Your brain learns pictures faster than words. One of the biggest reasons learners keep translating is because they connect English words to words in their native language instead of connecting them to real life experiences. For example, when you hear the word river, your brain may immediately search for its equivalent in your own language. That creates an extra step every single time you hear or use the word. Instead, train yourself to connect English directly to images and experiences. When you hear the word river, imagine flowing water, trees on the bank, birds flying overhead, and the sound of water moving. When you hear hungry, remember the feeling in your stomach before lunch. When you hear cold, remember a chilly morning. The human brain remembers experiences far more effectively than translations. This simple habit gradually removes the need to translate because English begins to represent ideas rather than foreign vocabulary. Stop memorizing individual words. Many learners proudly say they know 5,000 English words, yet they still struggle to hold a 2-minute conversation. Why? Because conversations are not built from isolated words, they are built from patterns. Native speakers rarely create every sentence from scratch. They use thousands of familiar phrases repeatedly. Expressions like I think so, it depends, let me check, I am not sure, that's interesting, and I will let you know come out automatically because they have been used thousands of times. If you spend your time memorizing random vocabulary lists, your brain has to build every sentence piece by piece. But if you learn complete sentence patterns, your brain starts retrieving entire expressions instead of individual words. This dramatically reduces the need for translation because you are recalling ready made language instead of constructing it. Think small before you think big. Many learners believe thinking in English means having long conversations with themselves. That expectation often leads to disappointment. Thinking in English begins with tiny moments. The moment you wake up, simply think good morning. While brushing your teeth, think the water is cold. While making tea, think I am boiling water. While walking outside, think the sky is cloudy today. These thoughts may seem too simple to matter, but they are incredibly powerful. Your brain learns through frequency, not complexity. Hundreds of simple English thoughts every day are much more valuable than one difficult paragraph once a week. Speak even when your English is not perfect. Perfection is one of the biggest enemies of fluency. Many learners stay silent because they want to avoid mistakes. They believe they should only speak after learning more vocabulary, more grammar, and more pronunciation. But language doesn't work that way. Children make thousands of mistakes before they speak correctly. Nobody criticizes them because everyone understands that mistakes are part of learning. Adults, however, often expect themselves to speak perfectly from the beginning. The truth is that every mistake teaches your brain something valuable. Every conversation strengthens the neural pathways responsible for speaking English. If you wait until you feel completely ready, you may end up waiting forever. Fluency is built by speaking imperfect English consistently, not by waiting for perfect English to appear. Listening changes the way your brain thinks. One of the fastest ways to reduce translation is through massive listening. The more English your brain hears, the more familiar its patterns become. When you repeatedly hear phrases like, "What do you mean? How was your day?" or "I'll be there soon," your brain eventually stops analyzing each individual word. Instead, it recognizes the entire expression instantly. This is exactly how you recognize familiar songs. You don't consciously analyze every lyric. You simply understand the song because you have heard it enough times. The same principle applies to English. Listen to stories, conversations, interviews, podcasts, and audiobooks every single day. At first, you will understand very little, then you will recognize individual words. Later, you will understand complete sentences. Eventually, you will begin predicting what the speaker is about to say. That's the moment your brain starts processing English directly instead of translating it. Create an English environment. Many learners spend only 30 minutes a day studying English and the remaining 23 and a half hours living entirely in their native language. Then they wonder why thinking in English feels impossible. Your environment shapes your brain. Change your phone language to English. Read simple English headlines. Watch short English videos. Label objects in your home. Speak to yourself while cooking or cleaning. Write a small daily journal in English. The goal is not to study English all day. The goal is not to study English all day. The goal is to let English become a normal part of your everyday life. When your brain encounters English regularly, it gradually stops treating it as something unusual. Trust the process. There may be days when you feel you are making no progress. You still translate, you still pause before speaking, you still forget words. Don't let those moments discourage you. Language learning is often invisible. Just as a tree grows underground before anyone sees its branches, your brain spends weeks and months building connections before you notice dramatic improvement. One day you will suddenly answer a question in English without thinking. You will understand an entire conversation without translating. You will realize that English feels natural. People often call this a breakthrough, But the truth is that it was not one magical moment, it was the result of hundreds of hours of listening, speaking, reading, and thinking in English. So, the next time someone tells you, don't translate, just speak, remember that fluency is not achieved by fighting your brain, it is achieved by training it patiently. Don't focus on stopping translation. Focus on listening every day. Focus on speaking every day. Focus on thinking simple thoughts in English. Focus on learning useful sentence patterns instead of isolated words. And most importantly, be patient with yourself. One day, without even noticing when it happened, you will realize something extraordinary. Someone will ask you a question in English and you will answer instantly, not because you forced yourself to stop translating, but because your brain has finally learned to think in English naturally. That is the real secret to fluency. It is not magic, it is not talent, it is the quiet result of consistent patience, meaningful exposure, and the courage to keep speaking even before you feel ready. So don't waste your energy asking, how do I stop translating? Instead, ask yourself, how can I use English so often that my brain no longer needs translation? Because that is how fluency is built, not through shortcuts, not through talent, and not by memorizing thousands of words. It is built through daily exposure, daily speaking, daily listening, and the courage to keep going even when progress feels slow. Remember, every sentence you speak is training your brain, every mistake is strengthening a new pathway, every conversation is moving you one step closer to thinking naturally in English. One day you will notice something incredible. You will answer a question before you even realize you did not translate it. You will understand a movie scene without subtitles. You will express your thoughts effortlessly. That day won't arrive because you forced your brain to stop translating. It will arrive because you patiently trained it to think differently. So keep listening, keep speaking, keep making mistakes, keep improving one day at a time. Trust the process because your future fluent self is being created by the small choices you make today. Thank you for spending your time with Echo English. If this video helped you see language learning from a new perspective, share it with another English learner who needs this encouragement. Subscribe to Echo English for more deep, practical, and inspiring lessons that help you build not just English fluency but confidence for life. And before you leave, here is something to think about. If a baby can become fluent in a language without ever opening a grammar book, what does that teach us about the true power of listening, repetition, and patience? Think about it, and I will see you in the next video.